Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport MSBaithak podcast. I'm your host Didi, and joining me today once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be talking about the Indycar Belle Isle GP. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant, welcome back after the most ill-timed hiatus vacation that you have taken
Yeah,
in the last year and a half. We missed the Indy 500. We missed the doubleheader in F1. We missed, Formula E, and a bunch of others, and Formula 2, the Formula 2 doubleheaders. So, how
yeah.
does it feel?
Well, it's great to be back. First of all, it's great to be back. I did catch the Indy 500 in my hotel room at night while I was almost like asleep. So, but I think I watched the entire race except for the last red flag and the last, I think, 15 20
Oh my
laps
god.
maybe. So yeah, that is very unlucky. But I have, and I did catch the Formula 2 and Formula 1 Monaco Grand Prix. So, like, it was not fun, but I did catch them. Right. But yeah, it's great to be back, and it's great to, you know, get back into talking and living motorsports.
Absolutely. But before we dive into, what happened in Belle Isle, I just wanted to get your thoughts on Marcus Ericsson winning the Indy 500.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely brilliant, and I'll be honest here. When I saw the grid before the Indy start, Marcus was, I don't know, P4 5 something like that. He was up there. I did think to myself, okay, yeah, he can win it. He's up there. He can win it, right? So, but for Marcus Ericsson to finally get that win, I mean, obviously he has won a couple of IndyCar races before, but to win the 500, get those double points, and be in championship contention now and leading the championship now. I think Marcus Ericsson has finally announced himself on the big stage at IndyCar. He has been consistent. He has been up there, but he has always been the underdog, and he never has anyone considered him in the title fight. But right now he is leading the championship, so it's great news. It's great news.
Yes, the sneaky Swede has
The
finally
sneaky sweet,
struck a
yeah.
big one.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like you said, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, and he's definitely stolen the thunder from Romain Grosjean.
Oh,
Grosjean had been
definitely.
building up his hype over the last year and a half, but he's definitely taken it away, and it's going to do a lot, not just for like IndyCar, but also for like Marcus Ericsson going forward. And I think that he also said, on the podium, not bad for a pay driver, and that
Yeah.
just goes to show how patient and how perseverant he has been throughout his career. And I think another thing that the fans pointed out, IndyCar fans, was that there is no Marcus Ericsson merch,
Yeah, absolutely.
official merch, which is
Yeah.
just crazy to think about. So clearly, but it's great to see him back, in contention. He was leading the championship pretty comfortably after the Indy 500, but now he is second only behind Will Power by just 3 points. But yeah, definitely up there. And we've talked about Marcus Ericsson's consistency up here, and we were kind of disappointed at the start of the season, especially with his crash at Long Beach, I believe, when he lost a few good points. But now he's
Yeah.
back up there, and hopefully he'll bring it home for all the Swedes that were out there that day, and his family was also there, so that was kind of awesome for them too, to see Marcus win. But let's get into what happened in Belle Isle. I think that was a race as good as I've seen, especially a dry race,
Yeah.
as good as any that I've seen before. Diverse strategy calls. It wasn't neck and neck to the finish. People would like you to believe it was pretty clear cut, but even then, it was still very entertaining until maybe three, 4 laps to go. And unfortunately, the last Belle Isle GP, so Detroit's getting another track that will be more in the downtown area. So we'll talk about that too. But let's talk about Will Power beating Rossi by just 1 second at the line and taking the championship lead.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, one of the better races, one of the best races, dry races, and surprisingly no major cautions or safety cars or anything like that, right? So I think it was a brilliant, like, the mind goes back to something like France last year, where the strategy calls and the racing was good. The other things, there was no crashes, there were no external factors or anything like that. So absolutely brilliant. And that chase by Alexander Rossi, which developed because of that strategy calls. And I mean, I thought Rossi would get the lead a couple of laps before, but I guess the back markers did cost him some time. But yeah, it was entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give it to Will Power, though. I think Scott Dixon, who's on the same strategy as Will Power, and we always talk about Scott Dixon being the master on tires, the master of fuel saving, but Will Power just outright beat him. And from the very start of the race, in the very first turn, Will Power overtook Scott Dixon on the same tires, while Scott Dixon was struggling to get any temperatures into his tires, and Will Power went ahead and he maintained that lead for the entirety of the race. And then we saw all of these guys struggle on the red tires, right, the soft tires, and have a
Yeah.
huge drop off. But Will Power managed his stint beautifully towards the end of the race to come home in first. And I think that just goes to show the place that Will Power is in. Throughout the season, Will Power has been consistent, and he was leading the championship after 3-4 races, but the only thing lacking was a win, and now he has that under the belt. And I would say he's as good a championship contender this year as we were talking about Alex Palou or Marcus Ericsson. And obviously currently he leads the championship, but I think more than the strategy, I would give that win to Will Power to make sure that he got to the end. And no one on that day could have matched Will Power the way he was driving his number 12 car.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the commentators and everyone did talk about the fact that the willpower of previous years was an aggressive driver. He was a racer through and through, basically. And we are seeing a different willpower this year. He's more calm, he's more collected, and he's just putting in consistent performances to rack up those points. And I think the performance in Belle Isle is just an absolute proof of that. To take those tires home and to defend like he did,
And not just that, Alexander Rossi started 5 places ahead of Will Power at the start, right? Alexander Rossi started 11th, I believe, whereas Will Power started 16th.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And uh, Wilpar did say that I was driving as straight as I could, which obviously you need to do to save your tires, right? But that was a brilliant drive. Especially the last stint, it was just phenomenal.
Yeah, but you also have to give it to the race strategist for Alexander Rossi to make that. That was definitely a brave call, to get Alexander Rossi in the pits on lap 4. No one else executed it as well as Alexander Rossi did, but definitely a brave call nonetheless. Obviously, like you pointed out, the traffic, I think, towards the second round of stops or third round of stops, maybe for Alexander Rossi, that is what really cost him a fair shot at P1, towards the dying stages of the race. But nonetheless, that was an interesting race. And those who started on the the red tires, the soft tires, Joseph Newgarden was the front runner, and he finished in third place, 10 seconds behind Will Power. So that just goes to show, how well these two drove that race. Rossi just 1 second behind Will Power, and then we had Scott Dixon. Joseph Newgarden finished fourth. We had Scott Dixon in third, who was on the same strategy as Will Power. Which goes into the fact that I mentioned diverse strategy calls. I don't remember seeing four different strategies panning out throughout the race. 3 majorly, and then people on like some weird strategy also mixed in there towards the end of the race, like we usually see in oval races where people are trying to make it on some insane strategy to hoping for a yellow flag or something towards the end. But that was a very, very interesting race to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think I've watched every single IndyCar race this season because I watched the Indy GP and I enjoyed the 2 week gap, and I watched the Indy 500. So I have watched every single IndyCar race this season, and it's been great. I think it's been as entertaining as I hoped it would be, and and yeah, I mean, I look forward to following IndyCar throughout the season and coming seasons.
Yep, and the last Belle Isle GP. I mean, obviously we haven't been following IndyCar for that long, but Belle Isle gave us a fabulous race last year between Pato Award and Joseph Newgarden. Joseph Newgarden losing it out on the last lap, I believe. After a yellow flag. And again this year, and it's kind of sad to see a track that's given us so much good racing, especially at least when we've been following it. To go,
Yeah.
hopefully the new track that we get is just as good as this one in giving us great racing.
Yeah, and I mean the Belle Isle it's an iconic track in IndyCar. It's been here for ages, and to have a track, to have a race in Detroit, which is home to Chevrolet, is, I mean, it's always great. So yeah, let's see what the new track brings us.
Yep. Now let's take a bigger look at the championship. The top three in the championship are from three different teams. So how exciting is that? Obviously, we have Will Power for Penske leading the championship by 3 points ahead of Marcus Ericsson from Chip Ganassi Racing, and then we have Pato O'Ward in third place for the Arrow McLaren SP team. And I think that is great news for the second half of the IndyCar season. Pato O'Ward has made a huge comeback since the the GMR Grand Prix, and he seems to be on the up. And then we obviously have Marcus Ericsson, but largely the top six is still dominated by the Ganassi boys, and that just goes to show how good a job not just the engineering team is doing, but what Alex Palou and people like Scott Dixon and Marcus Ericsson bring to IndyCar, which is just being consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the last few seasons, Chip Ganassi has been the front runner majorly, right? And I think it's great. It's great to see the top three from three different teams, but it's great to see top three in different stages of their career. Basically, we have uh, Will Power, who is like a legend of IndyCar. We have Marcus Ericsson, who is in a midfield. Like he transitioned from Europe to USA, and all these things, and then we have
Yeah,
Pato Award.
he's midway through his career. Yeah.
Yeah, midway through his career, exactly. And then we have Pato Award, who's the young gun basically. And when you after the top three, when you look at the next, we have a similar range of career, you know, range of drivers. So it's great to see that mix of drivers competing for the championship.
Absolutely. And now talking about the two, silly season moves in IndyCar that we saw, and that is Alexander Rossi to McLaren and Kyle Kirkwood to Andretti. Very different philosophies it feels, the teams have with the drivers they're recruiting for the next few years. It seems that Andretti is going for a mixed group of inexperienced drivers. Obviously, Colton Herta has now, a few seasons under his belt, but is still highly inexperienced in that way and hasn't really produced a consistent. He's consistently fast, but he's not producing those consistent
Yeah.
results at the end of the race. He's not consistently up there at the finish line. And now Kyle Kirkwood, who's only had one season of, who will have one season of IndyCar under his belt at the end of this year. And then obviously we have Romain Grosjean, who has a couple seasons of IndyCar and a lot of seasons of Formula One, but is still adjusting to the Andretti team and the IndyCar environment. Obviously, he's done well, but over the last few races we've seen it'll still take some time for Romain Grosjean to be there, where Marcus Ericsson is maybe for a direct comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kyle Kirkwood was always going to Andretti. Maybe not this at the end of this year. Like, I don't think I was expecting him to go to Andretti at the end of this year, but he was always going to Andretti. But to see Alexander Rossi move to McLaren, and I think his performance in Belle Isle translates the fact that he has now secured his future, and he can race freely, and not race to prove his CV and to prove his place in a team. But yeah, I think, as you said, Romain Grosjean will take some time to come to a level of, say, Marcus Ericsson, because Marcus Ericsson has a few IndyCar seasons under his belt, and I mean, we haven't followed him that much, but yeah, he has been there.
Yeah, so we'll see how it pans out for both of these teams next season or over the next few years with Alexander Rossi going to McLaren and Kyle Kirkwood to Andretti. I mean, it's only up from here, upwards from here for Kyle Kirkwood
Yeah.
really going from AJ
And
Foyt to.
I mean,
But it really also changes the team dynamic and the way these drivers will work together. Because one of the things during the Indy 500 week that people were pointing out is how the folks at all the drivers at Ganassi were working with each other, and there was a mix of inexperience, young talent, and also a lot of experience between Jimmy Johnson, Scott Dixon, Marcus Ericsson, and obviously Alex Palou is the new one there, and Tony Kanaan, who was there for the Indy 500, who's got a ton of experience there, which is probably one of the big reasons why they were dominating the field.
yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's going to be pretty interesting from here on in.
Yeah, so that's all from my side for this week's podcast. Vedant, anything else from your side before we wrap it up?
Well, I mean, I just wanted to mention that Kyle Kirkwood is definitely on the up, and I think, I mean, he had a fractured arm or something this weekend, but he still drove the IMSA race and won in his IMSA, won the class in IMSA, and then he came to drive the car, and he was doing pretty well until his shunt. But yeah, even with an injured arm, he was doing pretty well. So, and he has, I mean, he's not the top of the rookie standings as of now. That is Christian Lundgaard, but I think
Yeah, surprisingly so.
yeah. But I think in the larger scheme of things, when you look at the performances itself and not the points table, I think Kyle Kirkwood has a long and great career ahead of him.
Absolutely, and what I'm looking forward to is a one-on-one comparison between Kyle Kirkwood and Colton Herta
Yeah.
next year, and to see what the standings say at the end of 2023. So that will be very interesting. But thank you for bringing that up, Vedant. It's been a pleasure talking to you about IndyCar, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.